Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what if Kuma and Kaido switched devil fruits entirely 38 years ago on an island that the world government erased from every map in existence? Two devil fruits were sitting on the ground. One would define a man who wanted to liberate humanity. The other would create the single most feared creature the world has ever seen. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Those two fruits could have gone to completely different people. One wrong move from Big Mom, 1 second of hesitation, and everything you know about One Piece changes forever. Today we're going to trace that alternate timeline from God Valley all the way to Wano and beyond. Before we get into what changes, we need to understand exactly what happened at God Valley, because most people only remember the surface of this story. 38 years before the events of One Piece, the world nobles organized what they called a native hunting competition. They took an island, filled it with civilians and slaves, and hunted them for sport. Among those slaves, a 9-year-old boy named Bartholomew Kuma, and his best friend Emporio Ivankov. Now here's the detail that matters. The prizes for this competition were 2 devil fruits, not just any fruits, 2 of the most powerful fruits that the world nobles owned. The Nikyu Nikyu no Mi, the Pawpaw fruit, and the Uo Uo no Mi, Model Seiryu, the Azure Dragon fruit, the single mythical Zoan that the fandom itself classifies as one of the strongest devil fruits in existence. Kuma and Ivankov used the chaos of the Rocks Pirates' attack on the island to steal both fruits. Ivankov grabbed the dragon fruit. Kuma grabbed the Pawpaw fruit, but then Big Mom arrived. She went straight for Ivankov, ripped the dragon fruit out of his hands. She planned to give it to her son, and eventually Kaido snatched it from her and ate it on the spot. Meanwhile, Kuma ate the Pawpaw fruit before anyone could take it from him. That's the canon. But the fandom itself has noticed something. The presence of both fruits at God Valley is not a coincidence. It's a direct reference to a Chinese philosophical proverb. You cannot have the fish and the bear paw at the same time. Kuma's name literally means bear. His fruit is literally the paw. Oda was telling us something about choice, fate, and identity from the very beginning. So today's question is simple. What if she'd gone for Kuma first, and Kaido ended up with the pawpaw fruit? To understand what the dragon fruit does to Kuma, you first need to understand who Kuma already is without any fruit at all, because this is the part that changes everything. Kuma is a buccaneer, an ancient race so feared by the world government that they've been hunted almost to extinction. Physically, buccaneers are already on a completely different level from normal humans. We're talking monstrous strength, endurance, and a natural affinity for haki that the world government literally tried to erase from history. Kuma is one of the most emotionally driven characters in One Piece. This is a man who voluntarily erased his own memories, every single one, just so he could protect Luffy's crew one last time. He endured years of torture and cyborg modification because he believed so deeply in the Revolutionary Army's mission that he was willing to sacrifice his own humanity for it. And that's who is holding the dragon fruit in this alternate timeline. Not a man who wants destruction, a man who wants liberation. Now let's talk about what this fruit actually does, because it's more than just turning into a dragon. The Uo Uo no Mi, Model Seiryu, is classified as a mythical Zoan, a category the fandom itself describes as rarer than even Logia fruits, and it comes with 3 forms: human form, human beast hybrid, and full dragon. In full dragon form, the user becomes a creature so massive that entire islands tremble. And here's what people forget: in Kaido's case, most of that durability wasn't even the fruit, it was his conqueror's haki coating, combined with his natural Oni physiology. Now imagine that same haki coating on a buccaneer who already has monstrous base stats. Kuma Dragon is potentially more durable than Kaido Dragon, not less. Here's where it gets truly insane. In canon, the Revolutionary Army's power is enormous, but they don't have a trump card that can match a Yonko one-on-one. Now, give Dragon a lieutenant who can transform into the most powerful creature in the world. The Revolutionary Army doesn't just become a major threat, it becomes the single most dangerous organization on the planet. The world government, which already fears Dragon more than almost anyone, now has to deal with a dragon Kuma who can level their facilities, destroy their fleets, and fly over the red line. Think about what that means for the story. But here's the price. And this is where Oda's genius becomes almost painful to think about. In canon, the moment that defines the entire second half of One Piece, the Sabaody separation is only possible because of the pawpaw fruit. Kuma uses it to send every single Straw Hat to a different corner of the world. He saves their lives. He buys them 2 years to grow strong enough to survive what comes next. With the dragon fruit, he can't do that. The dragon fruit has no teleportation ability, no way to push people away to safety, but that means the Straw Hats never separate. There's no time skip, there's no 2 years of training. Luffy never goes to Rusakaina with Rayleigh, Zoro never trains with Mihawk, Sanji never masters his raid suit and awakens his genetics. The crew that arrives in the new world is the same crew that struggled against Lucci at Eni's lobby. And here's the real question, without the time skip, does Luffy ever reach Marineford in time to save Ace? Or does he arrive the same way he did in canon? Broken, too weak, too late. Kuma Dragon might have saved the Straw Hats at Sabaody, but the pawpaw fruit, the one he didn't have, might have been the only thing that gave Luffy a future worth fighting for. Now this is the part that the Ohara library thread and every fan discussion gets wrong. They focus on what Kaido loses when he doesn't have the dragon fruit, but they're not asking the right question. Kaido without the dragon fruit isn't just weaker Kaido. He's Kaido who was already considered a Yonko level threat before anyone saw him transform. The man survived being struck by lightning. He survived falls from Sky Island. He survived 9 execution attempts by the world government. None of that was the dragon fruit. That's all base Kaido. So Pawpaw Kaido isn't a downgrade. It's a complete reimagining. And when you actually sit down and think about what the Pawpaw fruit does in his hands, it becomes something genuinely terrifying. Let's break down what the Pawpaw fruit actually does, because most people only think of it as a transport ability. It's not. It's one of the most versatile and broken fruits in the entire series. The core ability. The paws repel anything. Attacks, pain, fatigue, concepts. In canon, Kuma literally extracted all the pain and damage from Luffy's body, every injury from Thriller Bark, and transferred it into Zoro. That's not a transport trick. That's the ability to manipulate the physical consequences of battle itself. Now think about that in Kaido's hands. One of the most compelling arguments from the Ohara library thread goes like this. You could hit Kaido all day with your strongest attacks, and then he returns every single one back to you. He becomes a perfect counterfighter. And remember, this is Kaido, a man who already believed Haki was the only true power. His base offensive capability without any fruit is already Admiral level or above. Now add a perfect defense that turns your offense against you. There's also the psychological element. One user made a point that deserves more attention. He enjoys being hit. He jumps off Sky Islands for fun, a fruit that lets him repel his own pain and give it to his opponents. He might actually love it even more than the dragon fruit. Here's the thing that most people miss in this scenario. Kaido's dream wasn't to be a dragon. His dream was to create the ultimate crew, an army entirely composed of devil fruit users, which is why he invested so heavily in the Smile program. He wanted power through numbers and diversity, not through his own individual transformation. The dragon fruit made him a one-man apocalypse, but the Pawpaw fruit, it makes him a perfect commander, someone who can deflect any threat, push any obstacle out of the way, and send enemies flying to the exact locations he needs them. In a way, the Pawpaw fruit might be more suited to Kaido's actual goals than the dragon fruit ever was. Let's go to Wano. Killer versus Kaido and Big Mom. In canon, the rooftop is defined by Kaido's dragon form. All of it gone in this timeline. But here's what replaces it. Every Gear 4 punch Luffy throws, repelled, sent back into Luffy. Every awakened attack from Law's room, repelled, back to Law, pawed away, and returned at 10 times the speed. The rooftop battle doesn't become easier without the dragon fruit. It becomes unwinnable in a completely different way. And here's the most painful part for Luffy fans. Gear 5 the sun god Nika awakening that was specifically catalyzed by Luffy's emotional state during the fight against Kaido's dragon form, the iconic moments. Luffy turning Kaido's body into rubber, the cartoon-like absurdity of Nika. Does that awakening still happen against a Paw Kaido? Or does the nature of the fight change so fundamentally that the trigger never comes? Destroyed, every step is agony, but he keeps moving, because somewhere inside the broken machine, there was still a father who remembered his daughter, and when he finally reaches Bonnie, when she dives into his memories through her devil fruit and sees everything he sacrificed for her, that moment hits harder than almost anything else in One Piece, because it took years, decades of suffering, all of it for one little girl who grew up thinking her father had abandoned her. Without the Paw fruit, and without becoming the perfect pacifista the world government could fully control, that arc of sacrifice doesn't exist in the same way. Kuma Dragon is a weapon they could never fully break, a dragon that kept fighting back, and maybe, just maybe, he never ends up crawling across the ocean floor at all. Maybe Kuma Dragon gets to be there for Bonnie, but here's the thing that makes this truly tragic. The version of Kuma that reached Bonnie, the version that made it to Egghead, was only possible because of the Paw fruit, because of everything it cost him, because he let them take everything from him willingly so that one day the pieces would find their way back to his daughter. The Paw fruit didn't just define Kuma's power, it defined his sacrifice. We've talked about the power scaling, we've traced the butterfly effects through the timeline, but I want to end on something that I think is the most important thing in this entire video. And it's something the community almost never discusses when they talk about this swap. The question isn't just who becomes stronger. The question is, does the fruit make the person, or does the person make the fruit? Look at Kuma. His Paw fruit is universally called the Hands of Liberation, not because of what the fruit does mechanically, but because of what Kuma chose to do with it. He used a repulsion ability to absorb suffering, to save people from their own pain. That's not the fruit, that's Kuma's soul expressed through the fruit. Now ask yourself, does Kuma Dragon still become the Hands of Liberation? Or does he become something the world fears instead of something it hopes in? A man who wanted to liberate humanity was now embodying the same creature that terrorized entire nations. And then there's Kaido, a man who proclaimed Haki as the true measure of strength, yet who saw devil fruits as tools, not identity. The dragon fruit gave him a form that became inseparable from who he was. Kaido the dragon, the strongest creature in the world. His entire identity was built around a fruit he apparently didn't even fully believe in. With the Paw fruit, a paramia, not a Zoan, Kaido never gets a beast form. He's still called the strongest creature in the world, but there's no creature. There's just a man with paws who can reflect your attacks back at you. Does the beast pirates even make sense anymore without a dragon at the top? Oda spent years building these two characters in parallel. Kuma, who sacrificed everything for others. Kaido, who wanted to sacrifice the world for himself. And at the center of both of their stories is a single moment at God Valley. But more than any of that, Kuma never becomes the broken pacifista that crawled across the ocean to reach his daughter. The most devastating and beautiful arc in recent One Piece history simply doesn't exist. The dragon fruit might have made Kuma more powerful, but the Paw fruit made him unforgettable.